Welcome. I'm Cheryl Mitchell, the president of Trelevan. We're a retreat and learning center that's located on a sheep farm here in Addison County, Vermont, but we're really interested in the intersection between spirit, nature, and social justice. So you might ask, why are we partnering with Growing Bright Futures to look at what's happening with early childhood issues here in our county? And the answer is we really think that what happens for our young children and our families and the ways that our communities support them is possibly one of the most important things that can be happening. So I am thrilled to be interviewing today Sadie Brightman, who is the founder and executive director of the Middlebury Community Music Center. So Sadie, welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for coming.
Thank you.
I have to say that I feel thrilled to be talking to you today because I feel like I've known you since you were so young and watched your musical development at the same time that my daughter was developing musically, and just feel so grateful to this community for all the things that they've done. But maybe we could start by you just describing what is the Middlebury Community Music Center.
Sure. We are a nonprofit organization. We have our 501c3 certification, which we're very excited about. And we are an organization that fosters musical education for students of all ages in our community. We're a group of teachers, and we are so lucky to inhabit the Middlebury Community House, which is at the top, right next to the post office and the Congregational Church. So we are right on Main Street, and the way that MCMC works is that each day, mostly in the after-school hours, private lessons are taking place in all of our different teaching studios throughout the house. So we might have, on the same afternoon, a flute teacher teaching private lessons in one room, and a guitar teacher in another, a piano teacher in another, and then on certain days of the week, we also have group classes that meet, which pull in various community members based around a certain area of interest in music.
Wow. So let's drop back. You,
Sure.
as a young person growing up in this community, got very involved in music. How did that happen?
Honestly, I can't remember a separation between myself being musical and involved in music. It just seems to have been something I was kind of born to do. I was told that when I was young and just playing around the house, I was constantly singing, and that was just never separate from my movement around through various activities in the house. So from that, my parents sort of caught on that this wasn't really going anywhere, and I started taking piano lessons from a very young age with Deborah Felmuth, actually, who's a local person, and learned so much. And I also, from the very beginning, was involved in singing in small groups, but also in several theater productions every year growing up, both with Night Fires and other local community productions, musicals. And so those beginnings from when I was a kid just really activated my love and interest in music, and I think it was partly the way that music spoke to me and moved me when I would hear it, and also how I could connect with other people in this nonverbal way, although when you're singing, maybe you're singing words, but there's just so much more to the dimension of creating that sound and that amazing sort of timelessness, and that's always captivated me.
So, I mean, you are an amazingly accomplished musician yourself, performing musician. How did you come to decide to create a place for teaching other people?
Yeah, it's an interesting, it feels right now like it's really pulling together everything that I have sort of worked for so far, and what I'd really like to see myself being able to offer to the community and stepping into the next chapter. I've studied music throughout that beginning that I was talking about, just sort of went through schooling and through college and graduate school. And
did you ever have to leave the community to
I
do
did,
that?
yes. I went to Wesleyan University for music, and then lived in Boston and went to graduate school there. And I also lived in the Czech Republic for a year to study music at a conservatory in Prague.
Wow.
So that was pretty amazing. But anyway, the idea of this community music center, it was planted in the back of my mind because as a young teacher, when I was first starting out, getting my first studio of students together in the Boston area, I was able to teach at a similar type of model. So there was an example of that in my mind that I saw as such a wonderful idea. Teachers who were kind of collective under one roof, and families that could take advantage of lots of different programming happening in one place. So I was really inspired to think of, and also thought it would just make such a great match with our area here, that it would be a really good fit. So it was just sort of an idea in the back of my mind. It didn't have a lot of traction until I was teaching at the community house. I had a studio where I just had my students come to me.
The community house in Middlebury.
Yes.
So you had moved back here.
Yes, we moved back. We relocated. My husband and I at that point had a baby and wanted to move back to Vermont, closer to my family.
So you just started in one small studio there.
Yes.
How did the idea of expanding it to a whole community of other teachers? How did you make that happen?
It was, the idea was, again, it was just kind of there in the back of my mind. As I taught in the space, I could sort of envision these other rooms could be used for music. I also was starting to expand into the space a little bit more. I might send, if I had 2 piano students at once, I might send one downstairs to work on the piano and report back, or we might do, a performance there versus upstairs. So we started to expand in the house a little bit. But really the turning point came about when the board of the house put a request out to the community for use of this historic building. They wanted to find a more robust tenant, basically, some way that the house could be utilized more often. So from within...
I'm just thinking many people like me remember the house as being beautiful, but it was used for maybe teas or, open from time to time, but not a full-time presence.
Right, yeah, they had a lot of sort of private parties and functions and different events for the town that would bring people into the house a couple times a year, and yeah, so it really was an opportunity right there, just to visually to see the space available, and then to have this charge from the board of the house to...
So this was Jessica Swift's old house? Do you want to tell us a little bit more about it?
Yeah, it was. It was given to the town of Middlebury by Jessica Swift in 1932. And so it went at that point from a residence to just a building available to the town. And it's had several incarnations over the years. At one point there was a daycare facility.
Really? I don't even remember that.
Yeah, that was out of the back, out of the lower level. But mostly it's just been open in the ways we've described, and sort of, I think there came a point where the board has decided, instead of investing in a large amount of programming, they want to be stewards of the house, which they consider to be their job and their mission. So did you have to do that as an individual to put in a proposal? Yes, basically as a music
a little
teacher,
scary,
it was.
right?
It was a risk, and it was something I considered heavily. And it was over a fairly short period of time, though, when all these back burner ideas sort of came to the forefront, given the timeline, given the deadline of an application that they were, looking for people to submit. So my husband and I actually went to work just building out this idea, discussing it, doing a little bit of initial research with fellow music teachers in the area to gauge people's response and see what the kind of interest would be. I really didn't know. All I knew is that I had so many students, and I couldn't say yes to everyone. And I wanted to desperately. I didn't want to turn people away, and I knew my colleagues were also in a similar position as far as piano lessons go.
So how did you reach out to that community of other teachers, and what's the relationship now between all of you as the teaching faculty?
It's been pretty interesting. It started out with the people who I knew originally personally, and then it's been one of the favorite parts of this whole process is the number of relationships and people I've met through putting this together, because one fabulous musician and teacher has their favorite people they like to work with, and they've recommended others to come and join. So it's really been this sort of network of really like-minded teachers. What strikes me is that everyone who I've approached sort of in stages and in waves, reaching out to different people based on these various connections and relationships, every one of them has come forward as so devoted to teaching, has such a joy of sharing their music with their students. There's a real vibrancy across the board, which has just been so great.
And is there a way that you all, do you do performances together, or are you just sharing space? What's the...
Yeah, we have, we're starting. This is our second year, and I think in the first year we all were sort of going along with it, seeing what would happen, and, just building students as quickly as we could to get our studios up and running. And already in the first year, some collaborations came about and some ensembles played together. We had a wonderful end-of-year concert at the Town Hall Theater where we got to celebrate our student performers, but our faculty performers as well. That was a really nice mix of both faculty and students, sometimes playing together, but also interspersed. So that was a great chance for us all to sort of be musicians together. And this year we've, thanks to some efforts by one of our faculty members, Emily Sunderman, who teaches violin, that we have a new faculty benefit concert series, which we're very excited about. We have 2 this season, which actually the second of which just completed this weekend, and then next over the winter and spring we'll have another couple events like this, where they bring together people who are affiliated with MCMC, and the benefits go to our scholarship fund.
So you have a scholarship fund too.
We do.
So can you talk about what different kinds of music students can study with you, and how they find out about you, and how do they come to you and then you send them to a particular faculty member? Or
yes,
that
is sort of how it works. What we see ourselves sort of as a benefit to the teachers to have there be one place where families can contact us to discuss their musical desires and needs, and then from there we sort of match people together and let them know who's interested, and are very eager to connect people that way. So there, in terms of types of music, we have 24 different instruments that we offer. And not all of those are active yet, but we really would like to grow into, that range of options for students to study.
So you'll eventually have a symphony, an
yes.
MCMC symphony here.
Love that. Well, there is actually, it's funny you should mention, there's no string program in our area. There was at one time. There was a string orchestra, which I understand was well loved and well supported, and now we find ourselves, families are commuting quite a distance to get to string programming. So we hope to build that here over time, and at least in a small kind of ensemble way, create that group experience for our string students to play together and access some of that fabulous literature and study the ensemble playing that is a huge part of being in that genre.
Yeah. So when you talk about students, I mean, we all think, not we all, but a lot of us think, okay, so this is elementary school age kids. What's your actual student body like?
I think most of our students, we can say that at this point, are elementary school students, but we offer programming for babies through senior citizens. We offer the entire range, which is so motivating, and it actually happens that people of all different ages cross paths routinely in our space, and to see those connections forming has been really moving. So the idea, really the model of the community music school is that we are an educational resource for everyone, that we want everyone to take up an instrument or continue. Some adults come to lessons because they've studied as a child, and then life has become very busy, and then something sparks where they want to pick up their instrument again, and we think it's a noble endeavor and support it wholeheartedly, and want them to have that place to go. And also for teens who might just be ready to start an instrument even if they haven't had that possibility so far. So it's really open to anyone with the interest and the inclination. So
do you do the kind of teaching that, say, a teen who might be interested in starting a rock band would be able to?
As of now, we do have the possibility for those players to study their instruments privately. We don't have an MCMC rock band yet. We don't have that program yet. The Town Hall Theater has a fabulous program for teen musicians, which is a wonderful thing that they have going.
So let's talk a little bit about instruments. So if you're a kid studying, if you're lucky enough to have a school that provides music instruction, you can usually rent an instrument from the school. How do you have instruments at MCMC? What happens with instruments?
The actual instruments,
The actual instruments.
Yeah, we have, through the generosity of our teachers themselves, they sometimes will have a loaner instrument available for a student to get started with. But we function in a similar way that schools do, which is to refer people to the service that would allow for them to rent an instrument. So that doesn't happen for us in-house. We set up the lessons, and then with help with teachers, help connect students to find their instruments. It's something that has come about sort of randomly, but we'd like to put out that to our community that if anybody has a flute that's dusty in their attic that's maybe not getting played, certainly we'd like to build a, an availability for instruments for people starting out.
And as a nonprofit, can you function like the Good News Garage does for cars? And could people give you a good instrument as a tax donation?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah.
And so pianos are near and dear to my heart a little bit because of my daughter-in-law. And you're thinking a little bit about maybe needing new pianos, is that?
Yes, we do. I'd love to tell the piano story specifically because it's an interesting one.
Okay.
Yeah. So we have, when I first walked into the house, this was back when I was just teaching on my own, there was a upright piano, which used to be a player piano, that lived in the house.
Oh, I remember that one, yeah.
Big cabinet, and it's been converted now. It's an upright, and it was there all along, and it functions, it plays. We actually have it in one of our teaching studios now. I determined from the very first visit that it wasn't quite the level of quality or sound that I wanted to work on with my students. So I actually moved my own upright piano upstairs into the community house. So it's still there. It's
your own personal piano.
My own upright. It now belongs to the school, and it's a Yamaha upright that is in use every day. We're putting it to great use right now. So those are two of our 4 pianos. The third came about from Cynthia Huard, who's a faculty member who teaches at MCMC and also at Middlebury College and through her own studio as well. She had a grand piano on permanent loan that she was looking for a place for it to go, and we needed a place for a grand piano.
So where is that on the main floor?
It's on the main
where the dining
floor.
room used to be, or where is that?
Yes, and we call this our salon, which is really a kind of double room living room with pocket doors that open and close. So it functions for us as our sort of intimate performance space with the grand piano at the end of the room. It's just beautiful. Yeah.
And you said there were 4?
Yes. And the last one has come about through a generous donation of a community member and adult student of mine who had an extra piano in her basement, actually, that was not being used, and she thought, why not let the music school put it to use? So we have that in a upstairs studio as well. So it brings us to a point where we do have a lot of functioning pianos, but amazingly we still have a need for a couple more, and that is because our hours of the day, the primetime hours, are just so busy, the after-school hours. So we do find ourselves with a need for more pianos in order to fulfill the demand for piano students and also for the functioning as an accompaniment instrument in voice lessons and trombone lessons and violin lessons. It's important to all of us as teachers to have a beautiful instrument to inspire that kind of sound and musicianship that can come about when you're working with a great instrument.
So I remember when that gorgeous new grand piano was given to Middlebury College. Are you hoping for something like that, or what are your dreams here?
I think we can have scalable dreams here. I think we're working with our local resources to determine the best fit, but we're looking for something of a significant professional quality that can withstand a lot of use. So in other words, new enough that it's not going to sort of wear out faster than we can afford to replace it. But that said, there's quite a range of instruments, so we'll be happy to have something that's professional and beautiful to play.
Great.
Yeah.
So let's go back. You had mentioned that the bulk of your students right now are mostly still young, sort of school age, but that you're also working with very young children. And I'm wondering if you could talk to us about why you do that and why you think music is important for kids at that age.
Sure. Yes, I actually can speak very personally to this branch of our programming from my years of experience teaching Music Together, which is a fabulous research-based program that now we have at MCMC, and it's taught by Jessica Allen, who is a wonderful faculty member and also beautiful soprano and the music director at the Congregational Church and plays other musical roles in town. She's an incredible educator. And so the Music Together program specifically is designed for babies through preschool-age children to come to a music class once a week with their parents or their caregivers or their grandparents And the idea of the class is to create a exploratory environment that's structured and guided in such a way that kids get to take these steps towards basic music competence. And there's very measurable ways that we can see how they step into this musical ability that then they get to translate onto their instruments or into their singing as they grow. So the idea behind the program, and I think with a lot of early childhood research, is that the experience and the rich environment filled with the information allows for these kids to grow into their abilities, which then later they can refine, they can put labels to, and kind of build their skills from there.
So Music Together is sort of a national?
It's a national organization, yes. And we...
That's because our
yeah.
daughter, who grew up in music with you,
yes.
her granddaughter, they've just been exploring Music Together in Brooklyn because there's a branch there. And I'm curious about things like Suzuki. Is that something that's also part of your
Yes. We have a couple teachers who have trained in the Suzuki method of instruction too, which is an approach that brings parents, and also a very similar idea that's bringing the family into the process with the child as they learn music in a very holistic and loving way. So that's something that one of our violin instructors and a piano instructor as well offer. Yeah.
So, Sadie, I wish I could talk to you for hours. But we're going to run out of time. So
Okay.
Do you want to reflect a little bit? You've talked a little bit about yourself growing up in this community and the opportunities. What's it been like for you as a parent with young children growing up in this community? What's been helpful to you? What do you wish we had?
Your question is great, and it's part of what has motivated me very much to take on this big initiative to form this organization and create this school. Moving to a rural place that I loved growing up and had many enriching musical experiences that helped me form as a musician. I was wanting for my children, for them to be able to have a community and a place to go where music was the center of the activity, and not only that, where they could take their musical education to the next logical step in a progressive, thorough way. So what really pushed me into this thinking was I was really almost against the clock, wanting to keep ahead of them a little bit with what we have to offer. But that, I should say, that's for I have two daughters, and they're now 7 and 5. My 7-year-old is taking violin lessons and loving it, and also studies piano with me at home. But for now, our formal lessons are in violin. And our younger daughter has enjoyed a music discoveries class, which is a music and movement class for preschoolers, which we offer as sort of an in-between class between Music Together and private lessons. So just to give the big picture, the idea is that a student could start at MCMC when they're a baby, and they could really grow their entire time here, going into each next stage of musical programming that would suit their needs and their interests as they grow.
So do you foresee a time that MCMC will be providing this kind of support to all of our local schools and all of our local child care programs?
Yes, this is something we are researching and very interested in, and especially with the Music Together program. We'd like to see how we can expand our offering and reach more families that might just really benefit from this programming. Yeah.
Wow. I would have to say that my son, who grew up at Mary Johnson when he was a bit, I think he learned to sing before he learned to talk because Connie Stats did so much singing. And it seems like such an incredible gift to offer children in our communities.
They can relate to this modality. There's something imaginative and something that it's very free and yet exploratory. It's just one of the most wonderful ways to interact with kids. So part of our program also wants to educate and help parents learn how to engage with their kids in musical ways. So many people think, oh, I can't sing, I'm not musical, but the fact is that whatever step parents take to be musical in playful and, informal ways with their kids makes a huge impact.
Much of the, sort of the early talking about literacy, and when people used to just be encouraging parents, even if you can't read yourself, you can at least look at pictures and talk about them.
And sit with the book. And
sit with the book,
Right, a very similar thing. If we can make up a rhyme and then, make up a silly tune that we never will repeat the same way again. Yeah, that's a beginning. That's a real beginning.
So, I guess I won't ask you to say out loud because it's going to be shown in a minute or two, but if families want to contact you,
Mhm.
I think your contact information will come up
Great.
in just a second. And I so much appreciate both what you are doing for this community and also you taking the time to talk with us.
Well, thank you so much
again.
for the opportunity.
So, thanks for coming. So if any of you would like to contact Sadie, her information will come up in just a moment. And I would also like to thank Middlebury Community Television, who makes it possible for all of us to get information out to the broader community about what is happening and building bright futures. It's really working to build a network of support in our community for families with young kids. So thanks for joining us today. Hope you come back next time. And thanks.